With a story as old as FNAF, especially in gaming years, there ends up being plenty of story and lore. However, with FNAF, it's not as simple as that, if only. Expanding to books, movies, and even animated shorts, thanks for that, Scott, we have some of the most confusing story in the world with these games. But which points could we have done without? Most of them, but that's what we're exploring today. Greetings gamers and welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm Connor Monroe and this is the top 10 worst FNAF plot points ever. Let's do it. This is Halloween, by the way, so I'm sweatpants onesie Spider-Man. Look, it was a last minute thing. In at 10, In the Flesh. While I'm sure plenty of people love shipping FNAF characters with various characters and even real people from what I've seen, this seems to be taking the idea a little too far, especially the fact that it's canon. The issue I find with this is that this story of In the Flesh is basically an M-Preg fanfic about MatPat. And honestly, I didn't even know what that meant, and I had to have my sister explain to me what it meant. Basically, the story involves a character named Matthew getting impregnated with a mini Springtrap, which is apparently actually Springtrap and not Plushtrap, which makes no sense, after making a VR game about Springtrap getting his revenge. But the Springtrap AI he creates ends up having his creator's agony poured into it, resulting in it going nuts and spawning like 100 other versions of himself, like of more Springtrap AIs, just so that that original Springtrap would have something to kill when nobody was playing the game. Yeah, it's certainly a confusing point for the FNAF story, and honestly, while it may be useful to think about how this may impact security breach and the whole Gregory hides in the stomach thing, I honestly never needed this in my life. So, thanks Scott, that seared in there, that I can't imagine what it's like for Matt. And at 9, Sea Bonnies. Mott and his little brother Rory go to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza for a birthday party Rory was invited to. Mott finds his crush Theresa there at the party, and the two have a conversation until Mott teases Rory by saying that he looks like a sea monkey. So Rory decides to get revenge on him by using his tickets to buy Sea Bonnies, animals sold by Fazbear Entertainment that resemble sea monkeys. So they're just sea monkeys, but rebranded basically. But then, after his little brother pulls this Mott goes to get a CAT scan, and they find tumor-like clumps of sea bonnies all over like the inside of his body. Later that night, Mott also sees that his skin is turning a translucent pale blue. He quickly jumps out of his bedroom window and runs to the hospital in the pouring rain as his skin becomes more and more translucent. He accidentally tears a chunk of his flesh out by scratching it too much, but he sees in the light that it is actually a mass of sea bonnies and then throws them to the ground. This whole story is really unnecessary, and I have no idea why it was created and why they thought to include this freaking nuts thing in the story. Like, what do sea monkeys have to do with FNAF? Why? I can hear the hate comments this video is going to get, but you know that this was not necessary. We didn't need sea bonnies, okay? We didn't need it. And at 8, Reboot. The whole rebooting FNAF thing was actually a good idea. It was very needed since the series is probably the most confusing series that we've ever looked at, or that I've looked at seriously. But they messed it all up when in reality it wasn't a reboot, because everything we had seen in the games had still actually taken place. The fact that this causes more issues than it solves is one of the reasons it was so unnecessary. The main question we have now is what is real and what isn't, since technically any game in the series with the exception of Help Wanted could in essence be a game made by Scott who canonically inserted himself into the lore just under a different name. But by doing this, it caused everything we thought we knew about the series to be questioned, while also relying on that information going forward. So, like, what do we do? Everything could be fake, but that's all we know about the series. How do we handle this situation? Unless the games want to reveal what the secret games that Scott's in-universe version made. Like, god damn it, Scott! And at 7, Candy Cadet. Candy Cadet first appears in FNAF 6 and tells us one of 3 stories, all with the same theme. The theme of 5 things becoming one thing, 5 keys melted down into one, 5 kids sewn together into one coffin, which is a whole other can of worms that we can talk about later, or 5 kittens sewn together for one shoebox. Either way, they all have the same idea of 5 things becoming one thing, and at the time we thought that it was about Ennard and the Fun Times, but we couldn't really fit the numbers. But then we remembered that in the Twisted Ones novel, William ends up melting down the original 5 endoskeletons to help make the Fun Times and give them life, which is what we figured Candy Cadet was actually referencing when we talk about 5 things becoming one thing, 5 animatronic endoskeletons becoming one massive remnant. But the problem is, this was literally a Game After sister location, okay? We had already figured it out by that point. And Candy Cadet didn't help with anything we didn't already know, aside from maybe showing a couple things that would literally mean nothing at the end of the game since everyone burned. Like, Candy Cadet is legit just there to creep you out, because he adds nothing of value to this game. And a game all about tying up loose ends. This was unnecessary. And at 6, Into the Pit. While Into the Pit was the first ever Fazbear Frights book to make a splash in their own title, adding the whole concept of time travel is probably one of the worst things that this already complicated series could have done. Like, we don't know the actual true timeline of events to begin with, let alone if we have to add time travel to this bitch. Like, the only reason I think that Security Breach might take place this year is because of Into the Pit, which, if it hadn't existed, wouldn't have caused so many issues. Like, adding time travel into this series just makes everything more complicated. And it's something that we should all fear, because technically, everything could happen at once now in a sense. Like, William could be the same age in the first game and in the last game, just thanks to time travel being added. Oh, and the whole Glitchtrap might be able to time travel and has already possessed YouTube thing. Yeah, that's also probably going to cause issues, because of course it is. But seriously though, like, for real? Time travel? Really, Andrea? Like, that's what you had to come up with, or did Scott suggest it? And either way, Scott, why did you approve it now? Because the timeline is messier than my apartment. And I'm moving soon, so you know it's messy. Halfway through in at number 5, Cyber Chase. This whole Glitchtrap wants to escape the game BS is ripped straight out of Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. The best Scooby-Doo movie, by the way. At least the best direct-to-video. That's right, Zombie Island, I'm coming for your wig. Either way, the idea that Glitchtrap is trying to escape into the real world is, yes, interesting, but also messy, resulting in one of the most damn frustrating characters in the series. Like, what the hell? Who is this guy? Michael Myers? Just let him die already, Scott. You introduced Vanny to be a new killer. You made her be controlled by William. Like, why? Why can't we just have some level of normacy in a series about robots possessed by kids with extreme emotions? Like, why couldn't we just get a copycat killer who found them inspiring or something? Like, why did it have to be secretly controlled by him? God damn it, bro. This series could have had an out, something that would have made things easier and relaxing. And if we're looking forward to it, they would have provided a soft reset on the game so we can try to catch that shiny. But this time it didn't happen. We got trolled. It was a shiny that turned into a non-shiny Zorok. If you understand that, you must have watched me when I was shiny hunting on Twitch, because it's a Pokemon thing. And at 4, FNAF AR. FNAF AR is not the dumbest FNAF game we've ever seen. FNAF World. But rather probably one of the most annoying lore and logic-wise. Since, you know, why are you sending out robotic versions of your damn killer to families to try to repair your reputation? And why does this game take place this year and involve conversations about Security Breach if that isn't supposed to take place until years afterwards? Like, what the ever-loving is causing this absolute idiocy? This is one of the reasons that FNAF is impossible to solve. Not only that, but they also had unreleased, unused fast facts within the game files. Like, if you're going to confuse me this much, at least give me something to chew on like that. I don't want to go digging through the game files, or have to wait for other people to do it and then be allowed to share what they find on the Reddit. What the heck is your Lord Jesus supposed to do in the meantime? Just cry? Probably, but like, come on, FNAF AR has some of the most absolutely ridiculous points, and you gotta agree with me on that. How is Shadow Bonnie in the game and not Shadow Freddy? How do the dates not line up? Why is anything this way in this series? How are they sending out versions of their killer when they haven't found Springtrap yet? Because it's 2 years away. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, 30 years later. Time jumps are always annoying if I'm being honest. Okay, well, time jumps that have an impact on the timeline, instead of something like Harry Potter's 19 years later epilogue. I'm talking more like endgame 5 years later kind of thing. The time jump though between the second and third games in FNAF is arbitrary and quite frankly didn't help the series. Like, I get that it was supposed to explain why William was run down and whatnot, but then it only served as another question as to how William was able to survive for 30 years. And it got answered in the Man in Room 1280, but it took ages. This time jump also makes things more complicated timeline wise now, since if this is after FNAF 1's location closed, we would end up having a gap between the events of FNAF AR and FNAF 3, like I just said, which doesn't make any sense timeline wise, and even if FNAF AR comes after it, it doesn't help. It's ridiculous, and it's seriously something that didn't have to happen. It was just to try, and close out the timeline in a similar way to like Back to the Future, I think, since Back to the Future remained ever popular, especially in 2015, since the second movie set itself in the future, and we got to see how close they got to actually what the future was like, and I think that's what Scott was trying to do with the whole 30 years later thing, but you didn't need to do that, Scott. You didn't need to. And ultimately, in at number 2, bites. Having one mysterious bite incident that happened outside of the games a couple years after kids went missing in a Fazbear establishment is fine. I'm not upset with that. But having multiple separate bites that don't occur at the same time and both serve a purpose lore-wise and then cause massive debates is something I can't get behind. This is the kind of thing that Reddit wars are fought over, and they have been. And honestly, I don't even know if they stopped. This damn game takes place in 1983, but when you look up the bite of 87 on Google, you get pictures of this moment from FNAF 4. Like, for God's sake, Scott, it's like you wanted us to tear each other's throats out. Like you're being controlled by some evil spirit that gained control over your mind after you tested out a VR game for a company as an indie game developer maybe. Oh my god, Scott is possessed by Glitchtrap. Okay, no, seriously, what the hell is the deal with the multiple bites, bro? Just like honestly, no judgment. I just want to know what the thought process was behind this executive decision. Were the shareholders consulted? Like why not? Why weren't we consulted? I'm not a shareholder in FNAF. But hit me up if you want to talk. Finally, in at number 1, Resurrection. The worst plot point in all of FNAF. Ignoring 30 years later, ignoring the multiple bites or the inconsistencies and the pointless additions, the worst plot point in all of FNAF is giving Afton more lives than a goddamn cat. Like seriously, why? This guy deserves to die, so just let him die already. You had the perfect out. Like I said at the top of the list, you could have passed on the torch, and in some instances, quite literally, had the role of cat and mouse to move characters. We don't need more William, okay? We've had him for like 7 games at this point. We need something fresh. The Vanny concept was cool, but now she's just controlled by William instead of another psychopath, which makes it feel less cool, less real. Hell, I'd even take the revelation that it's just like the Fazbear company that's cursed, and it leads people to kill kids in their establishments, as long as it's not William. Like maybe William was the one who started the concept of the legend, but something that isn't William that drives other employees to kill would be a cool way for the story to go. And it could open up a load of different avenues. Please, let us kill him. And leave it there! There we have it, friends, the top 10 worst FNAF plot points ever to exist. Which parts of FNAF do you hate the most, and why is it the electromagnet doors that don't make any sense? Be sure you let me know down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been and shower me Peter Parker, and I'll see you in another video.